Hey everybody, this is Mr. E. It is December 30th, 2012. This video here just points out some of the hypocrisies from some of the gun control advocates such as Michael Bloomberg, Michael Moore, and as Jamie Foxx puts it, your Lord and Savior, Barack Obama. I'm going to leave Piers Morgan alone a little bit in this one here because that's an entire video to itself. I would just like to say, Piers Morgan, you're not an American citizen, so you can't hide behind the First Amendment. And if you don't mind, Piers Morgan, do me a favor and kind of shut the hell up.
Why do so many Americans not feel angry enough to demand further gun control?
Well, I would take it one step further. I don't understand why the police officers across this country don't stand up collectively and say, we're going to go on strike. We're not going to protect you unless you, the public, through your legislature, do what's required to keep us safe. After all, police officers want to go home to their families. And we're doing everything we can to make their job more difficult, but more importantly, more dangerous by leaving guns in the hands of people who shouldn't have them and letting people who have those guns buy things like armor-piercing bullets. The only reason to have an armor-piercing bullet is to go through a bullet-resistant vest. The only people that wear bullet-resistant vests are our police officers. Well, I don't know that there is ways to prevent, there's always going to be somebody, a deranged person. And every time there's a disaster like this, a tragedy like this, everybody says, well, now is not the time. Or if you had fixed the problem, you can't guarantee that this particular event would have been prevented. All of that is true. It's time for the president, I think, to stand up and lead and tell this country what we should do. Not go to Congress and say what you guys want to do. This should be his #1 agenda. He's the President of the United States, and if he does nothing during his second term, something like 48,000 Americans will be killed with illegal guns. That is roughly the number of Americans killed in the whole Vietnam War. Or if you had fixed the problem, you can't guarantee that this particular event would have been prevented. All of that is true. Well, I don't know that there is ways to prevent, there's always going to be somebody, a deranged person.
But the president has to be the leader on this. You know, when he was standing there in front of the microphone in Aurora the other night, you know, he's such a great guy. I mean, he's the heart that he has, the things that he said were so powerful. And yet, when he brought his own children into it, when he said, you know, my 2 daughters go to the movies, and what if it were them? Well, I guess if President Obama is watching right now, and I say this with all due respect, what if it were them? What if it were them last Thursday night? Would you stand at the microphone the next day and say, I feel your pain, and, you know, the existing gun laws, that's what he said, the existing laws are enough.
Debate, and it was no surprise that he blamed the mass shooting on, of all things, racism.
I think we're very frightened people. I think we've been frightened ever since we landed on these shores. We were frightened of the native people. We were frightened of the slaves we brought over, as we should have done. And we lived, and those in power know how to manipulate us with fear. Fear is used to the point where everybody feels like they've got to have a gun in the house. So why is that? What are they really afraid of? What do they think of? Who's going to break into the house? Do they think it's little freckle-faced Jimmy down the street? I don't think so. I don't think that's who they're afraid of.
Michael Moore's our guest. Do you own a gun?
Well, when I made the film Bowling for Columbine, I went to a local bank where they had a giveaway. If you opened up a certain bank account, you know, a CD.
You got a gun?
You got a gun. Yeah, you used to get a toaster.
Yeah, a gun?
They're handing out guns. So I
got one.
So I got a gun. Yeah.
Where is it?
Well, actually, I'm thinking about raffling it off to raise money for a good cause or something, because I really.
You feel funny with it around?
Yeah, I don't think that you know, I have enough security where I don't, you know, need to worry about that. So
good.
You know, it's kind of, well, it's not good actually. The fact that why would I need security? I'm just making movies. You know.
You're a little innocent movie maker.
I mean,
let's take another call from Huntington Beach, California, for Michael Moore. Hello.
That, you know, assault rifle ban, you know, banning these high-capacity clips, background checks, that there are a set of issues that I have historically supported and will continue to support. Here's what I think we should do. This week I called on Congress to take up and pass common sense legislation that has the support of a majority of the American people, including banning the sale of military-style assault weapons and high-capacity ammunition clips. And as I said on Sunday night, there's no law or set of laws that can prevent every senseless act of violence in our society.
The greatest failure we've had with regards to gun violence in some respects is what is known as Fast and Furious, which was a program under this administration, and how it worked exactly, I think we don't know precisely, but where thousands of automatic and AK-47 type weapons were given to people that ultimately gave them to drug lords. They used those weapons against their own citizens and killed Americans with them. And this was a program of the government. For what purpose it was put in place, I can't imagine. But it's one of the great tragedies related to violence in our society, which has occurred during this administration, which I think the American people would like to understand fully. It's been investigated to a degree, but the administration has carried out executive privilege to prevent all the information from coming out. I'd like to understand who it was that did this, what the idea was behind it, why it led to the violence. Thousands of guns going to Mexican drug lords.
Governor, if I could, the question was about these assault weapons that once were banned and are no longer banned.
That's why I've asked the Vice President to lead an effort that includes members of my cabinet and outside organizations to come up with a set of concrete proposals no later than January, proposals that I then intend to push without delay. This is not some Washington commission. This is not something where folks are going to be studying the issue for 6 months and publishing a report that gets read and then pushed aside. This is a team that has a very specific task to pull together real reforms right now. I asked Joe to lead this effort in part because he wrote the 1994 crime bill that helped law enforcement bring down the rate of violent crime in this country. That plan, that bill also included the assault weapons ban that was publicly supported at the time by former presidents, including Ronald Reagan. The good news is there's already a growing consensus for us to build from. A majority of Americans support banning the sale of military-style assault weapons. A majority of Americans support banning the sale of high-capacity ammunition clips. Look, like the majority of Americans, I believe that the Second Amendment guarantees an individual right to bear arms.